Hello again, everyone. Welcome to the Cipher Brief Virtual Studio. I'm Tom Nagorski for a conversation about the war in Ukraine, some recent developments, in particular, in terms of the peace talks or negotiations or whatever you want to call them, that are moving along, and some new developments there. Not clear exactly where they're going, but always great to have with us Lieutenant General Ben Hodges, Cipher Brief expert, former commander of U.S. forces in Europe, U.S. Army forces in Europe, and a resident, I always like to say, of Germany. So he sees things from Europe that we don't quite see with either his expertise or geography. But General Hodges, I wonder if we can ask you today about something that's freshest in the news, and that is the ceasefire proposal put forward by the Kremlin, by Vladimir Putin. I don't think anybody asked him expressly to do this, but he's said, okay, for 3 days surrounding Victory Day, which the Russians celebrate on May 9th, as you know, 80 years this year since the end of the Second World War, they will lay down their weapons for those 3 days. How did you take that proposal from Vladimir Putin?
I took it probably the way you and most of your other listeners do, that this is a Russian information operation to try and change the narrative, because I think he is starting to feel a little bit more heat from the U.S. side. And so this was to I think, change that narrative. But I think more than anything, it is about making sure, or not wanting Ukrainian drones to literally rain on their parade for their Victory Day celebration there in Red Square. The embarrassment of having Ukrainian drones, hitting that place during the celebrations would be significant. So I think it's partly that. I liked the response of the Ukrainian foreign minister, who immediately said, why 3 days? Why not 30 days? And what are we waiting for? Why don't we do it right now? So I think that really gives lie to the or exposes the real purpose of this thing.
You mentioned drones on the parade. There have been, I guess, 3 Victory Day parades since the full-scale invasion in 2022. No drones, I don't believe, rained on the parade before. Do you say that because you think the Ukrainian capacity to do that is greater, their willingness to do it, or just could happen?
Yes, and yes. I think you make a fair point that they haven't done it before, but the Russian attacks on civilian infrastructure and killing of civilians has only increased here over the past year. And so I think Ukraine is at a point where I don't know that they would do it, but they certainly have the capability to do it.
Mm-hmm. I want to turn to another piece of the puzzle at the moment, not new, but it is very much front and center right now, which is Crimea. Certainly not new in the sense that the Russians went in and took Crimea basically 11 years ago, as you know. But it is now, by all reporting, part of the Trump administration's proposal to the two sides. It says that Russia will not only retain the land, but get the sovereignty formally recognized over Crimea. Talk a bit, if you would, General, about how much that matters to Ukraine, but also just as a strategic matter, how important Crimea is.
Well, first of all, this would be damaging to American credibility if our government somehow acknowledged or recognized Russia's claim to Crimea, which it illegally annexed in 2014, as you highlighted. That would put us on the wrong side of every sort of legal consideration, sovereignty, international rules-based order, et cetera. So that would do further damage to our credibility, number one. Number two, the Chinese would take note. They would be interested to see that apparently the U.S. is flexible when it comes to nations grabbing the terrain of other nations. And of course, the Chinese are doing this gradually in and around the Pacific, the Philippines, in the South China Sea, and obviously Taiwan would be the great prize. So I think this is the kind of thing that erodes the deterrence that we supposedly are wanting to deploy against China. But it also would have a negative connotation for long-term recovery of Ukraine. I've spoken to very senior investment officials who said that there's no way that they would invest in the reconstruction of Ukraine if it looked like the conflict was going to resume. And so long as Russia occupies Crimea, they have the ideal launching pad for missile attacks as well as ground assaults and disruption of Ukrainian shipments coming out of Odessa. So I see no positive reason for the United States to go along with this. And nobody else in Europe is going to recognize it. And most interestingly, Turkey from the beginning has said Crimea is Ukrainian sovereign territory. And Turkey has an interest in Crimea because of the Tatars who have been there for centuries.
The future of national security is here. Introducing the Cipher Brief's NatSec Edge Conference, June 5th through 6th, 2025 in Austin, Texas. Join leaders from intelligence, defense, private industry, and investment as they explore the innovations shaping tomorrow's world. Gain critical insights, connect with top minds, and shape the future of security in an interconnected world. Don't just witness the future, be a part of it. Secure your spot now at natsekedge.com.
So just as a more strategic matter, General Hodges, can I ask, quite apart from everything you've said about precedent, about how the rest of the world would respond, as a strategic matter, looking at a map, for those who haven't been, why is Crimea so important?
Well, the reason that Catherine the Great took it back at the end of the 18th century was to protect the Russian coastline from the Ottoman Navy. And whoever owns Crimea today, I mean, with modern long-range weapons, anti-ship missiles, you can pretty much reach almost every corner of the Black Sea. And the Black Sea is important as an east-west economic corridor, as well as a north-south economic corridor. We have 3 NATO countries on the Black Sea, Turkey, Bulgaria, and Romania, as well as friends in Moldova and Ukraine. And of course, Georgia is in such a difficult position right now. But nonetheless, Crimea is sort of like, think of the balcony that looks out over the entire Black Sea region. And from there, you can dominate shipping, air, freedom of navigation, all of these things. It also is important because as long as Russia occupies Crimea, then Ukraine would never be able to get back up into the Sea of Azov. And before 2014, there was an agreement between Russia and Ukraine over the use of Azov Sea. Azov Sea is not international water, it's an inland body of water, which means that those nations could control it. But with Ukraine blocked now from access because of the Russian Kerch Bridge, 2 of Ukraine's 5 biggest ports are unusable, unreachable. And of course, Mariupol and Verdansk is what I'm talking about, and Mariupol was destroyed. So this is significant for Ukraine's ability to export and import, as well as the military considerations as well.
Now, nothing we've been talking about and nothing from the reports really suggests that there's a ceasefire that the two sides will accept, and certainly not something longer than a very temporary one, which then gets you to a situation we have also talked about before, which is Ukraine continuing to fight a war and likely with far less U.S. support than it's had before. How, as we sit here in the last days of April, how do you gauge their ability right now to continue to fight with that drop in support from Washington?
Well, so first of all, of course, General Cavoli testified 3 weeks ago in front of the House and Senate Armed Services Committee that Ukraine is actually winning on the battlefield. And if you're defending, that's your task. And it's clear that Russia cannot knock Ukraine out of the war. All of us watch different reports and videos every day of Russian troops on motor scooters, on e-scooters, and various other things. I mean, that's where they are. The only thing that they seem to be able to do is kill innocent Ukrainians with long-range missiles. So I think that Ukraine is in a position that it can continue this for quite some time. Now, from the U.S. side, there's still are significant amounts of ammunition and equipment being delivered that are from the Biden administration, from Presidential Drawdown Authority, from that administration. So that's still moving. When that runs out, I don't know exactly where that runs out, but the fact that the Trump administration has not asked for additional to go, I mean, that means there's an end to this at some point. Every day I read a report of some European country announcing we've just approved a package here, a package there. So I think, and maybe this, I know some people will say that Hodges is overly optimistic or I'm wishful thinking, but Europe has enormous industrial capacity. What they lack is the self-confidence to get their act together and do it. So I think that we're going to see increasing amounts of ammunition and equipment capabilities going to Ukraine because European countries, they're not confused by who the bad guy is, and they understand what's at stake, whether or not the U.S. does.
And last question then, General Hodges, you mentioned, and it's true, we see almost on a daily basis a headline from some European capital about a new pledge, a new manufacturing effort, a new boost in military spending. Even if it all works, if those pledges come to pass, are there particular weapon systems, particular technologies, particular things that the United States has been providing that will be particularly difficult to replace?
I think the air and missile defense is probably, from a technical standpoint, I mean, Patriot is best in class for what it does. It's not the only thing out there. There are other good systems out there, but Patriot, that will be difficult to replace. U.S. intelligence obviously has been important, but you're seeing countries, even Japan has said that we can probably provide some of those capabilities, satellite communications, for example. So for me, that's probably not all of it, but the air and missile defense is the thing that comes to mind first.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. General Ben Hodges, great always to have you with us, and I'm sure it won't be long before the tides and the goalposts will shift again and we'll have you back on. But thanks for being with us at the Cipher Brief.
I always appreciate the opportunity, Tom.